Hello and welcome to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education AI Policy Guidance Introduction video. The purpose of this video is to provide a thorough overview of the Massachusetts guidance for artificial intelligence in K-12 education. The video will provide an extensive overview, get you comfortable with the layout of the document and how you can use this document in your school or district. With that, let's get started. My name is Greg Kulowick. I'm the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education AI Strategy Consultant. If you have any follow-up questions or would like to get in touch with the department after the video, you can reach out to AJ Cote. Her email is listed here and it will be in the description of the video below. Before we get into the content of the video itself, let's provide a quick overview of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Office of Educational Technology. The office provides guidance in terms of their EdTech strategic planning guide. They also provide professional learning opportunities in terms of the EdTech Leader Network and the EdTech Learning Peer Cohort, as well as the EdTech Express. Additionally, the department and the Office of EdTech provides research and innovation guidance, and this is particularly around artificial intelligence. One of the elements we're exploring today is the Massachusetts Guidance for AI document in K-12 education, and that's the purpose of this video, which is to break that document down and make sure you're comfortable navigating and implementing that document to support your school or district. Before we get into anything AI related, what we want to do is align this video and demonstrate how all of the work around artificial intelligence is aligned with the department's educational vision. So what principles are guiding the department's work as well as the perspective on AI? It's that all students in Massachusetts, particularly students from historically underserved groups and communities, will have equitable access and equitable opportunities to excel in all content areas and across all grade levels. Culturally and linguistically sustaining classroom and school practices will support students to thrive by creating affirming environments where students have a sense of belonging, engage in deeper learning, and are held to high expectations with targeted support. What does that look like in schools and in classrooms? It means that all students are known and valued, learning experience are relevant, real world and interactive, and individualized supports enable students to excel at grade level or beyond grade level. All of the work we're doing around artificial intelligence aligns to this educational vision, which was outlined above. When it comes to resources that the Department of Ed is providing around artificial intelligence, there's two key resources that have been developed at this point. One is the guidance document, which we will be exploring today. The guidance document can be accessed by either one of these links on the screen, which will be made available in the video description below. Or if you'd like to pause the video at this point, you can scan the QR code or enter in either one of these links to access the Massachusetts guidance document directly on DESE's website. Before we get started into the content of the document, let's start by building some common language. So a critical question to move forward is defining what is AI or what is artificial intelligence. There's really three domains that the department has outlined, and this can help us have common language to talk about this technology effectively. We can look at AI as being a predictive technology, one that's often already in place in schools. Some platforms already have predictive AI embedded in them that students are using across the Commonwealth. These could be math environments, for example, that can look at how a student is performing on certain question types and predict which question they may need to be connected to next. In a non-education environment, I often think of predictive AI or predictive technology as one that will determine what you may do in the future based on previous behavior or previous interactions. Now, the AI that we're most commonly associated with in an educational space is the one in the middle, which is generative AI. This is the idea that a massive amounts of data, often words and ideas that are already represented on the internet in terms of text or video transcripts, are put into a training data set that allows users to use a user interface, something like a text generative AI platform, where text can be provided and an output is generated, typically in the form of text or that can even be video, audio, or images. We often think of AI and give the terminology of AI to a specific subset, which is generative AI. That's what we're seeing in schools most often at this point. There's another layer to AI, which is agentic AI. Now, the word agentic is connected to the word agency, and this is really implying that AI technologies have agency to complete multi-step processes or multi-step tasks completely on their own, or those processes can be built out ahead of time in terms of an agent that can do multiple steps in a process when that agent has been designed by the end user. What we are focused on specifically in the guidance document and a lot of the examples and ideas we'll explore in this video is generative AI. Now, with that definition clearly in place, we can now return to the policy guidance document. So the document was built really for school leaders and district administrators to help them develop and carefully navigate generative AI to ultimately come up with guidance that's going to fit within their school or district or develop policy documents. The Massachusetts Guidance for Artificial Intelligence in K-12 Education is designed to provide the questions, the framework, and the thinking around drafting your own internal guidance or your own internal policy documents. The process for navigating this document is it is really an actionable living document that's broken into 7 key domains. And we really took a workbook approach to allow schools and districts to evaluate where they are, determine what path they can move forward, and then revisit their progress along the way by returning to the document to figure out logical next steps throughout a school year or in the coming years. Now, how did we establish this document? First, we have a foundation for key principles around the ethical use of generative AI. You can see this one highlighted portion here that I'd like to zoom into. As districts adopt and integrate AI across instructional and operational settings, it is essential to ground all decisions as well as guidance and policy in shared ethical values. These principles reflect Massachusetts' commitment to a public education system that fosters equity, transparency, trust, and human dignity. Now, with that, and with the alignment of this document to the Massachusetts public education system, we can now look at the 5 key domains or 5 key values that this guidance document is built upon. This is the framework for how we can approach and understand what artificial intelligence and generative AI might look like in schools. So, foundational concept number one is data privacy and security. Now, the critical question here is what does this look like in schools with regards to generative AI? So we might be able to answer that with our school community is taught how their data is used when they interact with AI systems. This is understanding the importance of using tools that have a vetted student data privacy agreement, tools that are approved upon, so we can understand how our data is used, how the data is shared, and to make sure our data is safe and secure, even when we're using a generative AI platform. The next foundational principle is transparency and accountability. What could this look like in schools? A school or district maintains a public list of digital tools, specifically digital generative AI tools, and describes what each one does and how it is used. So this would be externally the school or district, making sure that parents or guardians or the community at large knows and understands which tools are being used, why they're being used, possibly how they've been approved of, what grade levels have access to these generative AI tools. Another way that we can think about transparency and accountability and what this can look like in schools is that educators, which may already have access to these generative AI platforms, are modeling transparency and modeling transparent use through attribution and citation when they are, as professionals, using generative AI to create classroom materials. So when we think about transparency, it can be a helpful first step to have all professionals, educators, administrators, and school leaders clearly demonstrating, documenting, and citing anytime they're leveraging these technologies in their professional work. The next key foundational principle is bias awareness and mitigation. So we can recognize that generative technologies can have bias embedded in the output because that's based on the data set of information that they're trained on. If there's bias in the data set itself, in the words and ideas that have been used to train these models, that bias can be perpetuated in the output that's generated. But how can we overcome this in a school setting, and what could this look like? One way we can answer this is that the procurement process for new tools includes analysis of potentially harmful bias. What could this look like? Is a foundational set of prompts that can be used across all generative AI platforms to evaluate the level of bias in the output that's generated. It's also important to recognize that the tools and the output is constantly evolving. The training is evolving for these models, and one prompt that may output a biased output in one instance, months later, as the technology evolves, that output will look different. It won't be the same output every time. So, consistent analysis of the harmful bias embedded in these tools needs to be revisited. Another question to think about of what this could look like, and the response is that an evaluation of existing educational technology platforms that have integrated generative AI into that tool or platform. So increasingly, what we're seeing is not that generative AI is going to be accessed by an AI platform itself, a chatbot environment where there's text in and generative text out. What we're increasingly seeing is that generative AI is embedded in the tools that already exist in districts. So not only do we have to be aware of bias awareness in new AI platforms we're adopting, but bias awareness in existing tools that have AI being added as a feature to that platform. The fourth principle, foundational principle, is human oversight and educator judgment. What does this look like? Principals, school leaders, school staff, or educators who use AI to help in operational tasks, help in rostering, scheduling, communications. They take care to review those outputs for accuracy, appropriateness, and quality. All generative AI output must be vetted in some capacity to ensure that it's a quality output that is appropriate, accurate, and a high quality text generative output. The last foundational domain here is academic integrity. So what does this look like in a school setting? Teachers and students know and understand what meaningful use of AI looks like in their classroom. And this is all of these ideas are the foundation of the document, and all of the work in the document aligns to these five foundational principles, and we can revisit them throughout the entire document. So let's move forward and think about these foundational principles. We can have schools and districts that are leveraging this document as an active workbook, consider where they land against these principles. So we have five kind of entry points. We haven't started thinking about this yet. We are beginning to explore and understand what this means. We have some practices in place, but they are inconsistent and maybe unclear. We have consistent policies and practices in development, and we actively apply this principle in decision making with ongoing evaluation and continuous improvement. If you'd like to at this point, it could be a healthy exercise to pause the video in considering your role in the implementation of generative AI in your school or district. Where might your school or district stand against these five foundational principles, against these five categories or these five descriptors at this point? And this can be a helpful reflection exercise to figure out where are we right now. And then the purpose of the document is to help every school and district across the Commonwealth move forward in terms of we are actively and awarely and kind of like thoughtfully implementing the technology against these five foundational principles. With that, now we get to move forward into the document itself, and let's provide a thorough overview of the document, the layout, the breakdown, and how you can effectively navigate this document. So the document's really broken into three parts. We have the foundational principles, which we've already been exploring. The purpose of this foundational section is to establish common background knowledge and common language. So, like we've already talked about, the difference between predictive, generative, and agentic AI. And in this foundational section of the document, the ideas we just explored, the five key principles that are going to guide ethical use of generative AI in schools and districts. In terms of establishing background knowledge and common language, we outline very early on in the document what AI is and what AI isn't. It's important to make this distinction early on about the characteristics in which AI can be a helpful tool to use in your work in an educational setting, an educational context, and to recognize the deficiencies of the technology in scenarios where we may not want to rely on it. So let's highlight some of the key ideas here. AI is a tool to support human decision making, right? This is a human-centered approach to using the technology. AI is evolving quickly and it requires active oversight, right? The document is built as a tool that a district or a school can return to, recognizing the rapid pace of change of this technology. What is AI capable of? High quality pattern recognition and rapid content creation and rapid content generation. Now, alternatively, let's define what AI is not. We have to have that in place as well. And we have this language in the document so school leaders can effectively communicate this perspective to all stakeholders in the district and community that's related to the district. So AI is not a replacement for educators. It's not a replacement for human relationships. It is not a perfect self-correcting system. It is not able to understand context, nuance, or ethics the way that a human can through their rational thought, and is not automatically neutral and fair. The tools are trained on data. That data is trained by people, and that can lead to biased output, which we addressed earlier in the video and earlier in the document in the foundational principles. What we also do here in this foundational stage is help educators and help school leaders understand how we might be able to begin preparing for a future that's embedded with generative AI in terms of all the different ways that AI might touch common educational experiences like adaptive assessment, real-time translation, scheduling, and the allocation of resources. So we have to be aware of these kind of future impacts of the generative AI in an educational setting. Now we move on to the next phase of the document, which is the implementation of the document itself and how you can navigate using it. So the screenshot we have here on the page comes from page 17 of this guidance document. You can see the action areas listed on the left side of the table are all of the key 7 domains that we explore to help schools figure out where are they now, why might they be giving themselves this self-evaluation or rating, and how can they move forward. So the entire document, right, on page 17 that we have here, it's all mapped out. What are the domains? Implementing in an implementation framework for schools and districts. Then we can address equity and AI and harmful bias and access to the technology. We can examine legal foundations for use. This is aligned to protecting student data privacy. Then we have AI literacy, which is teaching about artificial intelligence to educators, school leaders, and students. We have AI literacy teaching with artificial intelligence. This is what it looks like when it's being used in meaningful ways in schools and classrooms, not just understanding it, but implementing it. We have a section on academic integrity and how that can be navigated by schools and districts. And we also have a section on district operations. This is more of the use of generative AI on the running of schools and districts that we need to consider, especially as the technology is emerging in tools that we already have adopted in schools and districts. So this is page 17. We have all the ideas and domains on the left. Now, what we've provided in this workbook feel is providing schools with a framework from exploring, getting started, organizing, piloting, scaling, and then sustaining and adapting. So what we're allowing schools to do in districts immediately when they enter into this document is begin a very early self-evaluation. So we might say, for example, with regards to an implementation framework. A school might identify themselves as exploring this topic. When it comes to equity and AI, addressing harmful bias and access, they might say, okay, we've already done some work here. We're piloting navigating that domain area in that category. When it comes to legal foundations for use and protecting student data privacy, a school might say, okay, we're just starting to organize within that domain. So this is an opportunity. Again, the document is not designed to tell schools or districts how exactly what they have to do. There is not a fully fleshed out policy document where a school can just amend their name to the top of it. There are not rules outlined in the document. There are critical questions. There are ideas that we have to navigate. There's topics we have to explore and figure out. And if we're providing guidance to navigate these conversations and navigate crafting your own guidance document or your own policy. So very early on, page 17 can be really helpful in this document in terms of getting a first look and a snapshot of where a school or district is at this point when we're navigating generative AI. Now we move on to the bulk of the document, which are all of the key domains that we already talked about. Equity, legal foundations, teaching about AI, teaching with AI, academic integrity, and district operations. Now, to make sure the document can be easy to navigate, what we're going to do is break down how each one of these domains is presented in the document. So we have these 6 key domains of AI impact and integration. Within each one of those domains on the left, we will start with, in the document, repetitively over and over again, why this topic matters. What are the core commitments that DESE is suggesting a school or district make towards this topic? Or we can refer to those also as guiding principles. What are the action steps that school leaders can take to move forward within this domain of impact? And what are some really key questions that a leadership team could ask themselves to start to navigate this domain of integrating AI into a school or district successfully and meaningfully and carefully? So let's walk through a domain. We're going to jump right into the AI literacy, teaching about AI. And what we're doing here is not necessarily breaking down AI literacy itself. We're really familiarizing you, the viewer, with the document, how you can navigate it. So when you begin to navigate this document and leverage it in your school or district, you have some familiarity with the layout. So we start with teaching about AI. Why does it matter? We have a thorough explanation of why teaching about AI and developing AI literacy is critical in a school or district. We can pull some of the highlights out here, specifically about how AI literacy is an important literacy across an entire learning community. Students need to be empowered not just as users, but informed critical thinkers who understand how AI works, how it can mislead, how to assess its impact. Also, educators, especially including teachers and instructional leaders, need foundational knowledge and practical strategies to use AI responsibly and equitably in the classroom. So this section is really developing an awareness of the technology. We have why it matters as the entry point for every domain that you will explore. Then we move on to the core commitments or guiding principles. So when it comes to AI literacy, the core commitments that DESE is outlining, or we can consider them core principles that schools will want to kind of uphold or adopt, is something like defining AI literacy goals for all stakeholders, teachers, students, school leaders, and the community, integrating AI literacy throughout the classroom through digital literacy standards, providing professional learning for educators, engaging students as critical thinkers, involving families in AI awareness, and promoting ethical reflection and informed use across all roles in a school community. Now, one thing to highlight here is that these core commitments are not designed for a school to adopt all of them immediately, or these kind of like guiding principles that you want to uphold. You might have to critically evaluate these and say, okay, at this point, we can provide professional learning. We're going to start to involve families in our kind of like AI awareness training, and we're going to set up literacy goals across our school or district. So these are the suggested core commitments, and I think identifying the ones that really align to the work you're doing is a completely reasonable step. Now we move on to kind of the action phase of every part of this document, which is we have potential action steps that are outlined for you. Here's some suggestions that a school or district could adopt when it comes to, for example, defining your AI literacy goals. What are the steps you've already taken, which is coming right in the middle of the screen, and how might you be able to move forward? So let's go through these potential action steps as we unpack one domain. Now, when it comes to defining AI literacy goals, we want to establish a shared understanding of AI literacy for students, educators, leaders, families, and community partners. So, what might be 3 reasonable action steps? We identify AI literacy competencies for students, staff, educators, support staff, families, and school leaders. We also attempt to align student outcomes with both digital literacy and computer science standards as detailed in the Massachusetts DLCS frameworks to deepen our understanding of the foundations of artificial intelligence. And we can define role-specific expectations for school leaders, staff, and community partners when it comes to understanding the technology. Now we move to the middle column. This is where a leadership team or school administrators would get to outline what have we already done. Maybe a school has already mapped out initial pass at AI guidance and reasonable use, and that can help define AI literacy. Maybe a school has already looked for ways to integrate AI instruction into their classroom as it aligns to the DLCS standards. And if we haven't done these processes yet, that's okay. We can start to identify a plan to move forward. Now, an additional thing that we want to highlight here is that all of the core commitments of every domain align tightly to the potential action steps. So if we're outlining very early on that a school must establish AI literacy goals, that aligns to the potential action steps. If we highlight very early on that families in the community must be aware of generative AI and how it's impacting classrooms and education and teacher work and their own students, that potential district commitment is aligned directly to the potential action steps. So that's the third kind of repetitive process that you'll see as you're working your way through every domain. The fourth element of every domain in this document are the key questions. So these are key questions that a district leadership team or a school leadership team could explore to help figure out how we can move forward in this domain. So for example, when it comes to AI literacy, here are some important questions to consider. Define how AI literacy fits within your digital literacy integration plan. How are students, educators, leaders, families, and community partners included in shaping this shared understanding? Discuss whether your district is using a consistent definition and framework to guide AI literacy. So are concepts like understanding, evaluating, and using AI applied across teaching and planning? And then a final key question to discuss is describe how AI literacy is embedded into curriculum planning. How are concepts such as bias, ethical use, and data privacy integrated into core content areas, not just technology classes? So these questions can really shape the discussion that a leadership team is having when they're navigating one of the many domains in this guidance document. Now, along with those core questions, we allow you to go deeper with additional questions for reflection. So if you're a school or district that has maybe already established your guidance documents, already established policy, you may want to jump right into these going deeper, additional questions for reflection in each domain to kind of push your exploration further and make sure you can really refine and improve your approach to using generative AI across your school or district. Now, one key question that we often get is where should we start? We have this thorough Massachusetts guidance document, and we need to figure out, based on our structure and our leadership, where to get started. So, for example, you may have an administrative team, and one activity they could do is work through one section or one domain of this document at a time. They may report out to the school community via email, newsletter, or a school board meeting. We might have district admins working together to establish norms around the principles of ethical use for AI. So the expectation is that you don't necessarily have to navigate this document from beginning to end step by step. You might pull out specific elements that you want to focus your time and attention on. Another opportunity might be a local task force that includes students, and you can identify specific priority sections to address, walk through the action steps, and supplemental resources. So a task force might identify that we really want to focus on developing AI literacy, and we want to focus on bias awareness and mitigation, and you can focus on those two domains in the document. We might look to offer stakeholder and community listening sessions. So in these community sessions or parent guardian nights or community nights, what you can use are the reflection questions and the going deeper questions that are available in each of the key domains in the document to guide those sorts of discussions and have meaningful, productive discussion around generative AI. If you're an educational director of technology or an ITS, you can implement practices from the teaching with and teaching about AI sections. The point of this page here is to get you to think about what's the specific context in my school or district and give you some suggestions on how you might be able to use this document effectively. Now, you can conduct the self-assessment for your district on page 17 of the document. Or we also have at the department a self-assessment that's an online version, and it's linked here, but we'll also provide that in the video description notes below if you'd like to take that online self-assessment to get a sense of where you're landing right now with regards to effective AI implementation. Now, along with the exceptionally thorough Massachusetts guidance to AI in K to 12, we also have not just that document, but quick reference guides. The quick reference guides are available at the link on the bottom of the screen. Again, we will link to these quick reference guides in the video description below. What these quick reference guides allow you to do is pull these out separate from the document and use these potentially in a district leadership team meeting, potentially in a school leadership meeting, where you can get a quick snapshot overview of each of the key domains, know and understand what some of the critical ideas or language are, and this can be a helpful entry point to access these quick resource documents before digging into the larger guidance document itself. These are available on the Massachusetts Department of Education EdTech AI page. They are linked there, and we'll provide the link in the video description below. So thank you very much for watching the video. It was my pleasure to provide an overview of this document. I hope you find the video to be helpful in your kind of beginning phases of navigating the department's AI guidance document. Again, if you have any questions after the video, those can be directed to AJ Cote. Her email is listed here, and we'll put that in the video description below. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for watching.